Good morning. Welcome to the Chinese Embassy. This is the third press conference I've held on Hong Kong question. The past 5 months, the incident arising from relevant amendments has evolved into incessant violence. The recent escalation of illegal, violent activities push Hong Kong into a very and extremely dangerous situation. Those who care about Hong Kong would ask these questions. What is happening in Hong Kong? What shall we see the current chaos in Hong Kong? What would be the way out? 4 days ago, during the 11th BRICS Summit in Brazil, President Xi Jinping made clear the solemn position of the Chinese government on the situation in Hong Kong. He said, the incessant extreme violent offenses in Hong Kong trampled on the rule of law, disrupted public order, severely undermined the prosperity and stability in Hong Kong, and gravely challenged the bottom line of one country, two systems. He pointed out the top priority for Hong Kong is to end violence and restore order. We'll continue to firmly support ICAR government under the leadership of Chief Executive in governing Hong Kong in accordance with law. We'll firmly support Hong Kong police in strict and rigorous enforcement of law. We'll firmly support the judicial institutions of Hong Kong in bringing violent offenders to justice in accordance with law. He further emphasized the Chinese government remains unwavering in its determination to safeguard China's national sovereignty, security, and development interests. Implement one country, two systems, and oppose any interference from external forces in Hong Kong affairs. This important statement is the most authoritative voice from the central government of China on the current situation in Hong Kong and the future of Hong Kong. Every word carries weight. First, President Xi Jinping's speech reveals the nature and severe consequences of the extreme violent offenses. The current situation in Hong Kong has nothing to do with the so-called democracy or freedom. The nature of the issue is that extreme violent offenders have disrupted law and order in Hong Kong, attempted to destabilize Hong Kong and undermine one country, two systems. Their activities are extreme, violent, and illegal. The extreme violent offenses have trampled on the rule of law and disrupted public order in Hong Kong. For the past 5 months, the self-labeled peaceful protesters have resorted to senseless beating, smashing, and arson. They have carried out premeditated attacks against police officers and failed assassination of a member of the Legislative Council. They have turned many universities into their strongholds and besieged and attacked students from Chinese mainland. While claiming they stand with the weak, the righteous have discriminately hurt ordinary citizens and even doused a citizen who opposed their vandalism with inflammable liquid and set fire to it. While claiming they safeguard democracy and freedom, the righteous have restricted or even deprived others of personal freedom and freedom of speech. Such inhuman, murderous violence in broad daylight trampled on the bottom line of law, morality, and civilization, and must not be tolerated. The anti-China extremists have also taken such violence abroad and into the UK. Some of them, wearing black masks, created trouble in front of the embassy, Chinese embassy in the UK. They defaced the embassy gate, painted Hong Kong independence slogan on both sides of the gate. Some besieged the Secretary for Justice of Hong Kong SAR, who was invited to an event in London. She was pushed to the ground and sustained arm injury. We expressed strong indignation and strong condemnation over these violent acts. The extreme violent offences have severely undermined the prosperity and stability in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is known for its free and open economy, inclusive and diverse culture, professional and efficient management, and law-abiding and safe society. But today, Hong Kong citizens live under black terror created by violent extremists, with their life and property under severe threat. Hong Kong's GDP, after contracting for 2 quarters in a row, shrunk by 2.9% year-on-year in the third quarter. It is now in a technical recession. The Office of Government Economist of Hong Kong SAR revised down its forecast for the full year growth to negative 1.3%. Hong Kong's international rating has been downgraded. Its international image, business environment are under severe impact. In media reports, Hong Kong is now associated with incessant violence and disorder. The success and achievement of the past 22 years since the handover are being eroded. The once oriental pearl is turning into an oriental scar. Hong Kong, the fragrant harbor, is sliding into an abyss of chaos. The future of Hong Kong, if such situation continues, would be unimaginable dreadful. The extreme violent offences have challenged the principal bottom line of one country, two systems. The opposition and violent extremists in Hong Kong have advocated Hong Kong independence and publicly clamored for the liberation of Hong Kong. This reveals their true, sinister political agenda behind the so-called social appeals. They are actually aimed at undermining one country, which is the basis of one country, two systems. They attempt to stabilize Hong Kong and paralyze SAR government so that they could seize administrative power and separate Hong Kong from the mother. One country, two systems is one complete concept. One country is the precondition and basis of two systems. Without one country, two systems will no longer exist. Violent offences that undermine one country, two systems will never be tolerated. Second, President Xi Jinping's speech points out a way out for ending the chaos in Hong Kong. Namely, the top priority of Hong Kong is to end violence and restore order. The basic requirement of rule of law is that laws must be observed and offenders must be brought to justice. No society would in any way tolerate or indulge extreme violence. To restore law and order, violence must end, and violent perpetrators must be brought to justice. This is the only way to safeguard the interests of the public and secure a better future for Hong Kong, and cement the foundation of one country, two systems. The SAR government, the police and judicial institutions of Hong Kong should be given strong support in upholding rule of law and in taking forceful measures to curb and combat all types of violent offences and terrorist activities. We firmly support them in bringing the offenders to justice as soon as possible and in safeguarding the rule of law and public order so as to bring stability to Hong Kong and tranquility to the people. Third, President Xi Jinping's speech demonstrates the strong determination of the Chinese government to safeguard national security, national sovereignty, and development interests, and implement one country, two systems. At the fourth plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of Communist Party of China concluded last month, it was reiterated that the one country, two systems is an important policy of Communist Party of China in leading the Chinese people to realize the peaceful reunification of the motherland. The Chinese government will continue to implement fully and faithfully one country, two systems, Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong and high degree of autonomy. For this formula to work in Hong Kong, there are three bottom lines, namely, no tolerance for any activity that, one, undermines national sovereignty and security, two, challenges the authority of the central government or the basic law, and three, uses Hong Kong for infiltration or sabotage against the Chinese mainland. At the same time, the Chinese government will improve the system of overall jurisdiction over Hong Kong in accordance with the Constitution and basic law. Will also improve the arrangements for Hong Kong to integrate into the overall development of the country, match complementary strength with the mainland and achieve coordinated development. And we will work to address deep-seated problems hampering social stability and long-term development. Fourth, President Xi Jinping's speech shows the firm resolve of the Chinese government to oppose external interference in Hong Kong's affairs. External forces that have indulged and fed violence in Hong Kong cannot absolve themselves of the responsibility for the recent escalation of violence in Hong Kong. They confuse right and wrong and refer to the extreme violent offenders as peaceful demonstrators and pro-democracy protesters. At the same time, they are piling blames on Hong Kong police who are performing their duty, safeguarding rule of law and protecting the safety of life and property of Hong Kong citizens. Some Western countries have publicly supported extreme violent offenses. The US House of Representatives adopted the so-called Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act to blatantly interfere in Hong Kong affairs, which are China's internal affairs. The British government and Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Commons published China-related reports making irresponsible remarks on Hong Kong. What is worse, certain British politicians even plan to present an award to a chief propagandist for Hong Kong independence and who has instigated extreme violence. To those who question external interference in Hong Kong affairs, aren't these facts enough to address their doubts? We'd like to tell these external forces solemnly that the Chinese government remains unwavering in its resolve oppose any external interference in Hong Kong affairs. We urge these forces to immediately stop any form of interference in Hong Kong affairs, China's internal affairs, and immediately stop condoning violent offenses. Otherwise, they will lift the stone only to drop it on their own feet, like we did last time during the last press conference. We have made a short video to help you to see the extreme violent offenses in Hong Kong. This would show you the true face of the so-called peaceful demonstrators and pro-democracy protesters, and how dangerous the situation in Hong Kong has come.
好
watching this clip, I hope you would agree with me that facts and truth will prevail. I've said to British people from all walks of life on many occasions that a prosperous and stable Hong Kong and one country, two systems is in the interest of both China and the world, including the UK. There are about 300,000 British citizens and more than 700 British companies in Hong Kong. Continued chaos in Hong Kong will bring nothing but harm to the UK. I sincerely hope that British people who have a larger picture in mind will have a clear understanding of the current situation. I hope they will support the SAR government in ending violence, restoring order, and upholding the rule of law. Resist and oppose any words or deeds that interfere in Hong Kong affairs, and do more things that are conducive to prosperity and stability in Hong Kong, so that chaos will end as soon as possible, and Oriental Pearl will shine brightly again. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready for questions.
So can I ask you a question?
Would you also identify yourself so I know who you are?
My name is Richard Bilton. I'm a reporter for BBC Panorama.
Would you take the microphone?
I apologise, I'll start that again. My name is Richard Bilton. I'm a reporter for BBC Panorama. I wrote to you this week, sir, actually, about the camps in Xinjiang. I know that they are prison camps. Why won't you tell me the truth about those camps?
You jump into Xinjiang issue. Please sit down. I'll answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I would say there's no so-called labor camps as you described. There's what we call vocational education and training centers. They are there for the prevention of terrorists.
With respect, sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've seen the orders that are sent to the prison camps, and they are
What order you have? You mean the order said this is a prison camps?
That they are orders for the people who run the camps, and they're quite
No, I
clear.
think this is a pure fabrication.
It's true.
Let me tell you what is happening. What are you going to say? Let's finish. Let's do this way, right? You finish all your questions. Then don't interrupt my answer. Will that be all right?
Yes.
Okay. What's your question? What do you want to say?
I have two questions for you, sir, and then I'll go away. But the first question is, I have seen the orders that are sent to those camps. They change the way people behave, what they believe, even the language they speak. So they are brainwashing camps, aren't they? First question.
Okay. I think there's no such order for prison camps. What is happening is that, I don't know how much you know Xinjiang. Xinjiang is a very beautiful, very peaceful, and prosperous region in China. But 3 years ago, this was not the case. It became a battleground. You know, there's thousands of terrorist cases happened in Xinjiang between 1990 to 2016. Thousands of innocent people got killed. So there's an enormous uproar among the Xinjiang people for government to take resolute measures to tackle this issue. So since the measure has been taken, there's no single terrorist cases in the past 3 years. Xinjiang again turned into a prosperous, beautiful, and peaceful region. If the same thing happened in United Kingdom, let me ask this. If certain region there's a rampant of terrorist extremist activities and people suffer severely and call for actions from the UK government, what are you going to do? You will sit back and watch. And remember, what we are doing, what we call it preventive measures, It's nothing to do with eradication of ethnic groups, religious. You know, in Xinjiang, religious freedom is fully respected. I don't know you. Have you ever been to Xinjiang yourself?
I haven't, sir.
Okay. I hope that, you know, in the future you'll have opportunity to visit Xinjiang. They will see with your own eyes what is happening in Xinjiang. And the people enjoying freedom, enjoying prosperous life. You know, in Xinjiang, there are about 20,000 religious sites, 30,000 clergymen. There are one mosque for every 330 Muslims in Xinjiang, much more than many Muslim countries in terms of ratio, much more than here in Britain. In Britain, the church and Christians is 1 to 2,000. So there's no such a repression of religion, freedom of religion. People are fully respect their ethnic traditions, fully respect. The purpose to set up this training center is because there are some young people who have not yet, they committed minor crime, not serious enough to be tried, sent into prison. So the government gave them opportunity to learn language, Mandarin, you know, to be a good citizen and effective worker. You really have to know your mother tongue. We respect, you know, bigger people have their own language. But if they want to develop, they want to prosper, they want to communicate with the other parts of the country, they need to learn some language skill. And also they need to learn some professional skill. You know, because, you know, the lack of education, the lack of knowledge of basic legal knowledge, make them the victim to the extremist forces.
Final question. An alternative view would be if they don't learn Mandarin, they're not allowed out of the camps. But what I would say to you is just one.
What do you say? What's your question?
If they're not, because the documents I've seen make it clear that if they don't learn Mandarin, they won't leave the camp. So that's a different view of learning.
No, it's Mandarin is one of the. So that's why we're saying it's an education and training center. Language is just one of the courses. They also learn the professional skill. They also know legal knowledge. You know, in order they can live on their own skill. You know, they can live on their own profession. That's the purpose. But that been turned. You know, this method has been turned successful. First, Xinjiang is, as I said, is much safer. Last year, the tourists increased 40%. GDP increased more than 64%.
Can I just challenge one of the things you said, sir? Just to be clear, the documents I've seen make it quite...
What documents?
The documents that I've seen that would be sent to the people who run the camps. Now, they make it quite clear that people are held there, hundreds of thousands of people are held in these camps across Xinjiang. They're held there without sentence, without even charge, and they will be there for at least a year before they're released.
How many years?
They will be in those camps at least 1 year. That is a sentence from that document. They will be there at least 1 year.
I think
what you're telling me, sir.
Pardon me?
What you're telling me bears
I'm telling you
what I've seen.
the document, so-called document you're talking about is a pure fabrications. If you want to have a document about this vocational training education center, we have many documents. We have 7 white papers published. So before you leave the embassy, I hope you will carry some documents. The official documents. Don't listen to fake news. Don't listen to fabrications.
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Lindsay Hilson from Channel 4 News. To continue with that question, if it's about young people, why are so many elderly women and elderly men in the camps in Xinjiang? That has been documented, and yes, I have been to Xinjiang, and yes, I have talked to people who were in the camps. And following from that, on Hong Kong, is it now your intention, you talked about integration into the mainland with development, with all that's happening in Hong Kong, is it your aim to integrate Hong Kong more into mainland China, to make it more one country, one system?
So on Xinjiang again. I think I already said those students, or if you may, who are taking courses in the center are those who have committed some minor mistakes, not serious enough to be tried. So that's what I'm saying. So we want to give them better opportunities. We hope that they will not make a serious crime that ended them in the prison. That's the purpose. And it turned out this has been very successful. I think that mostly they're young people and also some elderly people. Age is not a big issue. The issue is what is about their behavior. Do they constitute a potential threat, a risk to the society? That's the criteria. Hong Kong, as I think I said in the very clear content, that the government is committed to one country, two systems. And this policy has been successful in the past 20 years. There's no reason for us to change this policy. This policy has been reaffirmed in the very official document by the party during the 4th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee and reiterated by President himself on many occasions, including when we celebrate the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. When we say integration, we mean the mainland will provide more opportunities to Hong Kong. We are, especially in terms of economic development. There's a Great Bay project that's including Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. It offers enormous opportunities, and these opportunities will bring more development in Hong Kong that will address some deep-seated problems. We all know, voiced in the recent incident, that to address this disparity of the income, to address the problem of opportunities for young people, to make Hong Kong more prosperous. That's the basic idea. We hope that we'll continue. We'll certainly continue with the one country system, which has turned out to be a very successful policy. But what is happening now is one country, two systems has been eroded, by this violence, extremist offenders and incidents. As I said in my opening statement, one country, two systems is a complete concept. You can't separate the two. And one country means Hong Kong is now part of China. Hong Kong has returned to China, is part of China. Period. So we can't agree to foreign external interference in Hong Kong affairs. So one country is a precondition. It's the basis for two systems. If one country is undermined, there will be no two systems. I hope you understand the relation. Yes, over there.
Stuart Lam from the South China Morning Post. Mr. Ambassador, just now you mentioned you urge people around the international community to support the SAR government in ending violence. But what we have seen so far is the SAR government has not been successful in ending violence, and to the contrary, violence is escalating. May I ask if the deployment of PLA troops would be part of the Chinese government's consideration? That's my first question. Thank you.
I would say the SAR government tried very hard to communicate with the local community. As a government, including Chief Executive herself, reach out to ordinary citizens in Hong Kong. I think, according to my account, they have had more than 100 events engaging, communicating with the local people, and I think they tried very hard. You need to give them opportunity, you need to give them time. But in order to have a civilized dialogue, you need to have an environment You know, the current violent situation in Hong Kong is not conducive, it's not favorable for the SAR government to have a serious, productive communication with the local people. So you have to know, you can't put the cart before horse. You know, so I think that's as important. With regard to the deployment of PLA, they are already there, you know, in the Hong Kong garrison. They are there to, you know, show China's sovereignty, and they are responsible for the defense purpose. As I said in my previous press conference, I'm still behind this statement. Now we have full trust in Hong Kong government. Just as the President Xi met with the Chief Executive 2 weeks ago, President Xi spoke highly of the performance of SAR government Chief Executive and her team, and acknowledged we have full acknowledgement of their performance and expressed a high degree of trust on her and her team. So I think now the Hong Kong government is trying very hard to put the situation under control. But if the situation becomes uncontrollable, central government certainly would not sit on our hands and watch. We have enough resolution and power to end the unrest.
And I have a second question, if I may. Just a few days ago, Mr. Jasper Zhang, who used to be the chairman of the Legislative Council of Hong Kong and a former chairman of the DAB, the biggest pro-China party in Hong Kong, he gave an interview and he supported the idea of pardoning those who committed a crime that is not serious and an independent inquiry in the police. So he is one of the most respected pro-China figures in Hong Kong. What do you think of his opinion?
I will leave this to the Hong Kong government to handle. You know, we respect independence of judicial institutions in Hong Kong. I will not comment on the judicial proceedings in Hong Kong. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. Deborah Haynes from Sky News. You have kind of repeated what you said in your previous press conference in terms of that question about whether there will be PLA involvement and about how the Chinese government won't sit on its hands. But what does uncontrollable chaos look like? It seems that we've had 5 months now. It's not getting any better. Isn't the policy of allowing the Hong Kong authorities to deal with this actually failing? And either there's going to have to be some serious compromises made and demands met of the protesters, or the Chinese government's going to have to actually get involved and send troops on the ground in force. And a second question, just following up from my colleagues about Xinjiang. Do you have a comment on the New York Times' reports over the weekend? It's released hundreds of documents that it says shows the coercive nature of the crackdown on the Uyghur community, and also releases quotes that it says were from President Xi Jinping back in 2014, talking about the need to use the organs of dictatorship in order to control the threat. Thank you.
Okay, first question first. I think Hong Kong government is still effective in dealing with the situation. And, but the important thing is, while the Hong Kong government is handling the situation, I would call that external forces will stop interfering into Hong Kong's affairs, stop inciting further violence, stop adding fuels into the violence. You know, we should respect the Hong Kong government in governing Hong Kong in accordance with the law. Your second question about New York Times so-called report, I can categorically deny there's such a document. It's a sheer, pure fabrication. And this is not the first time New York Times made up a story. I think the story was made up with ulterior motives, and it's not worth of making any substantial comment. Thank you. One question over there? Yeah.
Thank you. Roland Dolphin from the Daily Telegraph. You've spoken very forcefully about external forces fueling violence. You spoke about the true agenda being independence for Hong Kong amongst the protesters, and then you talked about the British government, specifically the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. You keep talking about external forces inciting violence. Are you accusing the British government of A, inciting violence, and of B, promoting Hong Kong independence?
I would say that we made our position known to the British side when they make irresponsible remarks on Hong Kong. I think when the British government criticized the Hong Kong police, criticized the Hong Kong government in handling the situation, they are interfering into China's internal affairs. And they look like they are balanced, but as a matter of fact, they are taking side. That's our position. With regard to independence, we appreciate the British government position that they oppose Hong Kong independence. I think the senior officials said on several occasions that independence is not an option. Of course, I would like to see a more strong condemnation on this so-called independence. That's number one. Number two, I hope the British side will live up to their words. So, so that's what we want to see. They are not only pay lip service, but also they take actions against so-called Hong Kong independence. Can I have here? Yeah, please.
Hello, Juliet Brown, ITV News.
What news?
ITV.
ITV.
We've just seen a sharp deterioration in the last 24 hours regarding the situation in Hong Kong. Are your words now some kind of warning that a crackdown may be imminent?
I'm not talking about crackdown. I think Hong Kong police is carrying their duty. Many people complain about Hong Kong police. As a matter of fact, I see that they are the most professional police in the world, and they exercise with great constraint. Let's take, for example, if similar thing happened in British campus, if similar happened in the Western Hall or the surrounding areas, what do you expect? British police will handle it. I think I would not say, I'll leave you to answer it, but it's exactly because the Hong Kong police try very hard to avoid, the casualties, try to avoid the students who have been, I would say, brainwashed by some extremists. So they try very hard. If it were not for this, we'll probably have a different picture, different situation. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Patrick, you work for the Guardian newspaper.
What newspaper?
The Guardian newspaper.
Guardian newspaper.
Newspaper.
I'm not so sure whether you're liberal or conservative. It depends what you read.
Well, we'll debate that later. Anyway, could I just ask you, given the mayhem you've described going on in Hong Kong at present, do you think it's feasible that the local elections will go ahead next week? And secondly, could you tell me why the Chinese government, if I'm right, oppose the idea of British national overseas passport holders being given a right of abode and a right to work permanently in the UK? Is that correct?
On your first question, I'll come to start with the last question. According to China's nationality law, all people living in Hong Kong or in Hong Kong are regarded as Chinese nationals. And also in China, we do not recognize dual citizenship. So I think that answered my question. My answer to your last question. What's your first one?
My first question is given
Election. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
We certainly would like to see election will be going on. I think it's up to the Hong Kong government, the SAR government. I do hope that situation will improve. The people will go to the poll, the ballot, without fear. I do hope that the order will be restored and people can have freedom to select their council members. So that is certainly is our hope. Yes, please.
Paul Adams from the BBC. Two questions, Mr. Ambassador. First of all, you showed us a very emotive edit of violence on the streets of Hong Kong. Violence scenes that we've all seen on our TVs, on social media for months. What you didn't show us was any violence being committed against the protesters, violence which has been going on for months and started a long time before.
You are talking about the police handling of the situation?
I'm not actually just talking about the police, I'm talking about the police, but I'm also talking about unknown groups of people, the famous white shirts who attacked people on the Hong Kong metro back in the summer. In other words, the violence is occurring on both sides, and I just wonder whether you would acknowledge that there has been violence used on both sides, and that what we're seeing in some ways is a response to that process. And my second question is, back in 2008, slightly more people in Hong Kong saw themselves as Chinese than Hong Konger. It was at the time of the Beijing Olympics. People expressed enormous pride. That number has gone down ever since, to the point now where very, very few people describe themselves as Chinese, and more people describe themselves as Hong Konger. Are you worried that you are losing the faith, the trust, the citizenship, if you like, of 7 million Hong Kongers?
First, I would say we are opposed to all kinds of violence, number one. Number two, you have to understand the cause of this violence. You know, so if you do not understand the cause, you do not know how to handle it. So you do not know how to address this problem. I think these extreme forces, they are the starters of all the violence. They should be brought to justice. And other lawbreakers should be brought to justice. There's no doubt about that. If you want to have a city, you should have society ruled by law. With regard to the Hong Kongers versus the mainlanders, I think people would reflect, I can't say we are going to lose a generation. You know, these writers do not represent a young generation. Even the students, you know, I said some of them do not understand the full picture. I think we have a responsibility to communicate with them, to tell them what is about their motherland, what has been changed since handover. We should compare Hong Kong today with Hong Kong 22 years ago, when Hong Kong was under British colonial rule, has no liberty, no freedom, no rights. You know, the governor of Hong Kong is appointed by the British governor. You know, but now Hong Kong have their fixed chief executive elected by the Hong Kong people. Though the system is not perfect, as I said many occasions, that the largest room in the world is the room for improvement. We are open. We are committed to do a better job to make Hong Kong a more beautiful, safe, democratic place. Thank you. So it seems to me, I think time's up. I take all the questions. Thank you for you. Okay, you still have a hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I'm with China Daily. I have a question about, we have noticed media reports recently that some British universities and universities from other countries have called back their exchange students in Hong Kong, and they sent warnings about the situation there, and they have been warning students to stay out of trouble or prevent the danger brought by the rampant violence there, brought by the rioters. So what's your comment on that? And you have noticed that there are more than 300,000 British citizens living in Hong Kong, and we have seen some complaints by some UK residents there for the inconvenience and even the threats and security. So what's your comments on that? Thank you.
So that's what I'm talking about. You know, if the chaos continues in Hong Kong, I think the British interests will be affected. And so that's why we call on the people in this country to have a clear picture of what is going on in Hong Kong and to support the Hong Kong government to end the violence as soon as possible. with what is happening in campus, we also heard some reports that there's some debate between the mainland students and Hong Kong students. We encourage them to have a civilized debate, to abide by law, and to listen to the authority of the university, to be a good student. If you have differences, you can voice your opinions, but never resort to any act which is in violation of local laws. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. That's the end of press conference. Hope to see you next time.